trouble, and it calls and tells you, Peter, I think I'm facing this challenge. Because you're not supposed to give him your own wisdom or your own experience, but you're supposed to tell him what if Christ was here physically to be able to tell him. So, thank you. I think the truth is falling so much short of the glory. Because the hassles of life and when we go around in life, there are so many things we find ourselves misrepresenting Christ, not doing the right thing. And I think it's not easy to be able to teach anyone if you don't draw your wisdom from God. And I would say that to be able to draw yourself from it and have that capacity to mentor others, you must be close to the source of wisdom, which is Christ. Which means we should always strive to study the Word of God. Because that's where we get the wisdom from consistently and persistently, so that we are always edified. And we also have the inner eyes to be able to understand others so that we may be able to meet their needs. Without which it becomes so hard. And we keep falling. The same when how many people like a friend is going through a challenge and maybe it's not even thought for encouragement or for advice, but you know that kids is going through a challenge and then you go there. How do you think as Christian we should be able to package ourselves? What so that when you tell something kid, you know that whatever the boy told me, this is what the Lord will have told me. Will have told me that like Jobu is presenting God Himself as a Christ on
it is important in our Christian lives that we should package ourselves in such a way that we can be used at any time. I cannot remember exactly the verse that says that we need to ask God to give us words to speak in time of need. I don't know which verse it is specifically, but it is a prayer that every one of us should have. And God to help us that when someone has a problem, when someone comes to us and is asking, is in need of comforting words, we should be there. The Holy Spirit needs to speak to us through us in order to impact that person in a positive way. Yes.
Amen. So there's a verse where Paul says, God our Savior. That's what verse? Verse 1. Someone can read it again.
An apostle of Jesus Christ by the commandment of God our Savior and the Lord Jesus Christ our hope.
What do you think Paul is saying, God our Savior? Instead of just saying God. Okay, let me tell you that one. According to the Roman traditions of that particular time, the word Savior was used to the emperor of Roman, which was used to be called Savior. So Paul was so deliberate to say God who? God our Savior. So because there are so many saviors, I think because there was some teachings that come, and even they were calling the emperor savior. So that's why Paul here was so deliberate to when starting writing to Timothy, is saying God who? God our savior. Because they were calling the emperor the savior. So he was really trying to emphasize to let the people know that God is the one who's what? Who is our savior. To it's not direct say like don't stop calling the emperor our savior, but he was trying to bring them to speed and telling them God is the only savior who can be able to save us to that uttermost. And then verse 3, somebody repeat the verse 3 again.
As I urged you when I went into Macedonia, remain in Ephesus, that you may charge some that they teach no other doctrine.
So why is Paul telling Timothy to remain in Ephesus? When we said when Paul was writing this was in Macedonia. He had heard that some teachers had started teaching wrong doctrines, and he had heard on the challenges that Timothy was going through, and there is emphasizing in the letter that do what remain where in Ephesus. Why do you think he's telling him so, and yet he knew that he was facing a lot of challenges in the ministry? And from verse 1, we've seen, he said that whatever he's saying is a command from who? From God. So I tell him, you have to remain in Ephesus. Why do you think Paul is doing that? And what can we learn? Because there was a lot of turbulence in Ephesus. Like there were a lot of friction between the right doctrines and the wrong doctrines, which Paul had taught, and what the wrong teachers had come and started sowing. But Peter is telling, yes, despite whatever is going there, remain there and teach them the right doctrine that I taught them.
I think
Yes.
When Paul preached at Ephesus, he left a small church,
Yeah.
and he had a heart for this church. It was his desire to make sure that it grew into what he expected, to the standards of what he had taught. And since Timothy was a student of Paul, so Paul knew at the back of his mind that at the end of the day, his teachings, his doctrines that he really wanted them to grow in Ephesus by entrusting Timothy on them. He had that trust in Timothy, in that he would manage and he will be able. And so that is the reason why he he insisted, he made an emphasis on Timothy to make sure that he stays at Ephesus. Paul had this desire, like I began by saying, to make sure that that church grew. And since Brian, you mentioned that at Ephesus there was this tribulation, there was this propensity of the believers to be swayed if any other doctrine was taught. So Paul really made sure that Timothy stayed at Ephesus for such a long time, and a long time that made sure that this word was that this word grew as he expected in Ephesus. So I think that is why he insisted on Timothy to stay.
Yeah, sure. Before one thing is that sometimes I think ministry can be so hard, and maybe in the mission field, and you feel like you really want to leave. We are not really told accurately whether Timothy wanted to run away from Ephesus, but I suspect Paul had seen it like this man. The pressure is feeling on the ground, both internally and externally at Ephesus. Maybe at some point it could be Timothy wanted to run away, and it's something which really happens to all of us in the ministry. Sometimes you maybe in the youth choir, maybe you're in a certain maybe student ministry and any other ministry in the church. I'm out there, you've gone, and then you feel like, hey, this I think the environment is not really favorable for me. And I think we can both draw some lessons from how Paul handled Timothy. Because Paul, as Manisa had told us earlier, Paul was a teacher to Timothy. And he knew that okay, it's tough. Even me, I've just come out of prison just a few months ago, a few weeks ago, but I'm still serving the Lord. So don't flinch at any moment. Yes, you were saying something.
Uh, the Church of Ephesus, first of all, by then it had someone who was very famous by the name of Nicholas. I don't know. The Bible says the book of Revelation, chapter 2, verse 2. Double place you can get it right. Actually, what is the character? You want to get the true character of the church of Ephesus. It is found in the book of Revelation, chapter 2, verse 2 up to verse 7, but we shall just pick some verses to get the background of that church and why to know why Paul is insisting that Timothy should not leave that church.
Verse 2. I know your works, your labor, your patience, and that you cannot bear those who are evil.
Maybe you can start with verse 1.
To the angel of the church of Ephesus write, this says he who holds the seven stars in his right hand, walks in the midst of the seven golden lampstands. I know your works, your labor, your patience, and that you cannot bear those who are evil. And you have tested those who say they are apostles and have found them liars.
Be patient a little. That verse 2 is bringing to us that these guys were tested to realize who is an apostle and who is not an apostle. And again, they have been very patient, they have been very hardworking. Continue verse 3.
It says, and you have persevered and have patience and have labored for my name's sake and have not become weary.
Continue.
Nevertheless, I have this against you, that you have left your first love.
Now here, these guys they have left the first love, which means Timothy has that mandate to make sure that the first love it is redeemed. Continue. Verse 5.
Remember from where you have fallen, repent and do the first works, or else I will come to you quickly.
Now which means Timothy had to bring people to repentance, to convince people to see that they are sinners, to go to repent. Continue.
But this, verse 6, right?
Yes.
But this you have, that you hate the deeds of the Nicolaitans, which I also
Nicolaitans.
hate.
Who is this Nicolaitans? I think he was someone who was bringing false doctrines. Yes, he believed in Jesus Christ, but he was coming with some kind of exaggerations. Now he drifts people from the true doctrine and comes up with other doctrines. Now the burden of Paul here was one that this one was to conclude all these people of Ephesus to forget about the true love, the true Jesus Christ, and come up with other things. Now, here writing a letter to Timothy is just an embassy. Actually, chapter 3, when you read to chapter 3, we shall talk much about the false prophets in chapter 3 and chapter 4. First Timothy. Now, the background that Paul is trying to lay is that this guy is in an environment where we have the false prophets, where people have forgotten the first love. Therefore, he has got trained in other person to make sure that has redeemed all this that is expected to be done there. Therefore, he's writing to Timothy to remain there, not to get out of that part. Now, here they talked about the Savior, we talked about the emperor. The message of Jesus Christ was just to bring people to salvation. Now here, Timothy to remain to this word of Jesus Christ was to bring the whole Ephesus into salvation.
So I think you can try to picture the magnitude of the work that Timothy had, and maybe the position that he had faced as from the Nicolaitans and other people in the church of Ephesus. And these are normal challenges that people meet in the ministry, me and you, when we are serving the Lord. And sometimes we even end up maybe questioning our faith, questioning whether really God is with us in the ministry when we face a lot of challenges in the ministry. And then, despite, yes, Paul tells Timothy to remain in Ephesus, and it gives us 6 reasons as to why Paul has to remain in the church at the church of Ephesus. We can start with the first reason, which has already been mentioned, but we can repeat it again. The first reason as to why Paul was to remain at the church of Ephesus was because the people needed to know the truth. The wrong teaching that had been taught. Uh, Timothy had the duty now to people to tell the people the right truth. Maybe Smile, do you have a Bible? You can read with us the book First Timothy 1, verse 3 to 7, where we get the first reason as to why Paul wanted Timothy to remain at the church of Ephesus. 3 to 7. Yeah.
It says, as I besought thee to abide still at Ephesus, and I went into Macedonia, that thou mightest charge some that they teach no other doctrine. Verse 4, neither give heed to faithless and endless genealogies, which minister questions, rather than godly edifying, which is in faith, so do so. 5 says, now the end of the commandment is charity out of a pure heart, and of a good conscience, and of pain and pain. 6, from which some having swerved have turned aside unto vain jangling. 7. Desiring to be teachers of the law, understanding neither what they say nor whereof they affirm.
Amen. So that was one of the reasons that Timothy had to remain at the church of Ephesus to be able to teach them the truth. And then there's where he's trying to tell Timothy that don't encourage, don't entertain vague genealogies. I don't know if you met these people who are discussing about who was the grandfather of who, those things which do not edify at all. Yes, it's good to know who was the grandfather of Jesus, but does it really help? So you get like a whole Bible study. You are trying to say where did who was, how can we go to trace that? Maybe it's genealogy of a certain ancestor. So, and those are the directions that Paul was giving to Timothy so that he can go to the church. Another reason, the second reason as to why Timothy had to remain at the church of Ephesus was because the place that he was to minister was a hard place, of course, because of the hard resistance that he was receiving, and they knew that Timothy was really prepared for that because he had taught Timothy the right way, and we saw him describing Timothy as a person who had grace, peace, and what, and mercy from the Lord, and so that one we get it from the First Timothy chapter 1:8-11. Someone can read it with us, Jobu. 8-11.
So the Bible says, but we know that the law is good if one uses it lawfully. Knowing this, that the law is not meant for a righteous person, but for the lawless and insubordinate, for the ungodly and for sinners, for the unholy and profane, for murderers of fathers and murderers of mothers, for manslayers. Verse 10. For fornicators, for sodomites, for kidnappers, for liars, for perjurers, and if there is any other thing that is contrary to sound doctrine, according to the glorious gospel of the blessed God, which was committed to my trust.
Yeah, so this was a hard task for Timothy to be able to teach these people, to be able to know what's the place of law and how law can be beneficial to them. So Paul saw it fit that if Timothy remained at the church of Ephesus, he could be able to get the church there so that they can be able to have a clear understanding of the law and of the scriptures so that it can be able to be beneficial to them. Another third reason as to why uh, Timothy emphasized this, Paul emphasized that Timothy had to remain there. He wanted to teach Timothy that when you're in a battle, you can't surrender. As a soldier, when you've been charged to be able to go and face the enemy, you don't surrender, despite the opposition that you may receive, despite the discouragement that you get on the way, you don't flinch. So and that one is clear in the verse 18. Someone can read with us verse 18, Enoch. Verse 18, 1 verse 18.
This charge I commit to you, son Timothy, according to the prophecies previously made concerning you, that by them you may wage the good warfare.
So that's another thing also can be able to learn as Christian that when we are in a warfare, we don't surrender. If we still have a breath and we have a voice to be able to minister unto others, regardless on how hostile the ground can be, we are not supposed to do what? To surrender. So it's a duty for us to remember that and also to encourage our fellow Christians that in anything that any challenge you are facing as a Christian, in ministry, also even with yourself, that we don't surrender and then give up, say, oh, I've been trying to forgo this sin and then it's not going away. So we never surrender, we still soldier on and ask God to give us the strength to be able to endure as we wait for the salvation of Christ. Another reason as to why God wanted Timothy to remain is because God uses unworthy people. Because Timothy, we can picture that as somehow maybe Peter felt like, okay, I think this is too much for me, and maybe this is not really my call. And like you can be given a ministry maybe as a youth leader, and then you say, I think if I'm given which other department can be given, maybe say if I'm given music ministry, I think I can thrive there. So I think youth ministry is not my thing, but God is telling, Timothy, Paul is trying to teach Timothy to tell him that, yes, God is going to use anyone, regardless of the qualification that you have at the moment. And it's something that we always feel that when we've been called for a ministry, or when you receive some revelation and God tells you, Kate, you can be a good student teacher. And then you ask yourself, oh, me, I'm not patient. You start giving yourself excuses. And say, oh, me, I can't do this and this. And that one is clear in verse 12 to 16. Someone can read it? Double?
And I thank Christ Jesus our Lord who has enabled me because he counted me faithful, putting me into the ministry. Although I was formerly a blasphemer, a persecutor, and an insolent man, but I obtained mercy because I did it ignorantly in unbelief. And the grace of our Lord was exceedingly abundant with faith and love which are in Christ Jesus. This is a faithful saying and worthy of all acceptance, that Christ Jesus came into the world to save his sinners, of whom I am chief.
Amen. Amen. So this is an encouragement. Even Paul is trying to use himself as an example. He's telling me, you know what, my son, I was a blasphemer there before, but the Lord has brought me all the way, and now He has used me, and I've been your mentor. I've planted churches, and He can also use the same way He used me, the same way He has accepted me as a fallen being. He can also use you at Ephesus. And something that also we can be able to pick from this chapter, that yes, anything that the Lord has allowed you to lay your hands on, He can be able to give you power and strength to be able to to do it. So if you feel like this year I want to serve the Lord in the music ministry, regardless of the people say that my voice is not in the keyboard, God can always help you, give you the right teacher to go to train you. Maybe you're not very good at Bible study. God can give you, God can teach you through maybe giving you good friends, can enable you on how to go about it, on how to study, get extra materials to be able to study, and all those things that you need as a Christian to be able to enrich your ministry. So let us not give an excuse, because the Lord as through this letter that Paul wrote to Timothy, is trying to speak to us in a special way that we can be used in anywhere where we accept to be used of the Lord. And then another reason as to why, um, who can give us before you not given? What do you think? Another reason as to why Paul uh, emphasized that Timothy had to remain at Ephesus, from even the verses that we read. Yes.
I just want an addition to what you said before.
Yeah.
You talked about the genealogy. That is one to not to hear the teachings of those who talk too much about genealogy. What is hidden in that statement, I think it comes out very clear. When Jesus Christ was walking on this earth, he met a Samaritan woman. The book of John, chapter 4, verse 7. I'm reading up to verse 9, only 3 verses. There comes a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus said unto her, give me to drink. For his disciples were gone away unto the city to buy meat. Then says the woman of Samaria unto him, how is it that thou, being a Jew, askest drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? One thing that it is happening here, actually, it is said that they were at the well of Jacob, which means they must have traced that family where it came from until they reached that it is the well of Jacob. Now, again, it's like they were separating themselves, that we cannot check in this one because we are from this genealogy and we are coming from this genealogy. And now, here, Jesus Christ coming to teach his word, he had no boundaries, he was to cross over. Now, what Paul is trying to tell Timothy, the other side, is that go out to preach, but don't draw boundaries that these are Jews, these are, how do we call them? The Gentiles, thank you. These are the Gentiles. Go preserve this word, be it to to a Gentile, be it to a Jew, any other person, don't consider which genealogy this person is coming from. And that was the same thing that affects us even today. Whatever we are doing, maybe someone will say that Nyakundi's family, they are good at singing. When we need a correct sex, we need to reconsider from that family. But these guys, they are good maybe at doing one thing or the other. Then if we need an expert, we can go and choose from this part. But no, if someone has a desire, is really in need of doing something, God will work out the rest.
Yes, Kate.
Evening, I would wish to point out a certain point. I don't know whether you mentioned about it. The reason why Paul is insisting on Timothy staying at Ephesus. When we read verse 8, actually from verses 7 all the way to verses 10, he's trying to insist on a point. You know, Timothy is facing this challenge of having so many people opposition. And again, maybe the church was full of evildoers, as you can see them recorded in that those verses, especially verse 9 all the way to verses 10. And the thing that Paul is trying to insist to Timothy is that the law of God is not for those people who are righteous. And again, the church of God does not belong to only the righteous people. And the people who we are serving are not people who are righteous. They need the grace of God. They need you there so that you can teach them the will of God. And this goes to us also. There's so many of us maybe find they leave church because they have come to church and found that people are not maybe doing the things they were expecting them to do, or they believe that people are doing evils within the church. And I remember that, like last Sabbath, there were some people who were summoned somewhere, and they were saying that our church is a Babylon because people are doing evils within the church. But I tend to think the church of Ephesus was the same way our church today is. Some of us maybe believe the faith in the name of fear and evil. And Timothy, maybe as a minister of God, had reached that point where he felt I cannot, or I can no longer serve the church of Ephesus because these guys are too evil and they don't deserve to be ministered to. But Paul is reminding Timothy that the law is not for the righteous. The law of God is there for people who are evil, and they need the grace of God. They need someone who can lead them and guide them to the right path. I tend to think that's why Paul is insisting that Timothy should stay in Ephesus so that he can guide them to the right ways.
Thank you, Kate. Yes, Peter.
Maybe just one more thing, which is nearly obvious from verse 4, is that it looks like there was a deliberate effort by the heretics to teach things that were going wrong, which were especially geared towards doubting the ministry of Paul and of Timothy, because it's saying these fables and genealogies they minister to Christians. Rather, now the thing that which Timothy was supposed to be doing was actually to be edifying the church. He was supposed to be edifying the church. That's what Paul is saying. It is in faith to do so, which means that the work of any faithful to edify the people of God. And I think that was one of the reasons that Timothy was supposed to remain in Ephesus to lead the edification of the church.
Mhm. There's so many things, so many lessons we go to get from the emphasis that Paul laid that Timothy ought to remain at Ephesus. And as Christians, I think it's something we need to be able to meditate, especially when we face challenges. When all things are rosy, when now things start getting rough, you feel like you're not supported by even your fellow Christians, and you feel like people are really wandering away. And then those people, most of the time, who are opposing you, they're not like far away; they're just within. They're within the church, and you feel like whatever you are bringing out is the true and what the Lord requires of us as Christians, but how people just go around it and then just bring some false doctrines, it can get to hurt you, and then you feel like, as Kate was saying, let me go maybe go to Maxwell. I think they're doing fairly better than us, where I can be able to express my faith well than at Parklands. So we should be able to know that if the Lord has allowed you to be at Parklands, anywhere in your family, in your place of work, you should not flinch if you are supposed to stand for the Lord. You are supposed to remain there and ask God to give you the strength so that you can uh, be able to show others what the right way is for others to follow. As much as it's not promised to be easy, but the Lord has promised to be with us. And His glory is going to be manifested in a big way, and that's what we all desire. Yes, my dear, you want to say something?
Basically, something small that just related to. It's like when you're starting a Sabbath school, you find that there is a need of an elder to go to the Sabbath school and aggregate people. And you find that some believers too in the main church will have to go to the Sabbath school to give warmth and assist in. It's very tough to walk out from your mother church to a Sabbath school. So I tend to believe that's the position that Timothy was in. To be told that go to the Sabbath school, ensure that you bring the people of that place to understand the truth of God and the gospel that's supposed to be spread there. Um, it's a motivation from Timothy and how to always lead people in such things. Yeah, I saw it in Pangani. There's a time they were trying to preach. They had a crusade, and then we were given two small, not small, what was it? Two flyers, and then we were to go in the market and start distributing and inviting people to the crusade. It was tough, but then we had one or two people who eventually had the word of God. So it's a motivation from Timothy that when we are called to do such kind of service of the ministry, we can be able to fulfill it.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think I've been there. I think there's a time I was requested to go to Harriet. I remember telling myself, you know me, I'm going to go to a Saint It's nice thinking like, what's wrong going to church? So I think I was so quick to give that reason to myself. Like, okay, me, I can't go to a self-speaking church. So we always give reason. We always give as a reason as to why not to work for God. Because we are really needed there. Like if it's already if it's Pangani, I think we are needed more there than we are needed as Parklands because there we have so many people. So we really let us interrogate our faith and ask God to speak to us in a voice that we may not be so receptive to our hearts, to our normal human nature. But ask God still, it's painful. Yes, it's going away from the warmth of Parklands where I'm used to, and I can know I can work in a kit, and then I'm going away to where I'm not used to. Anyways, God can allow you to go to somewhere and then you feel like. I remember there's a time, the first time I came to Nairobi, I used to go to Kisii New Life. Like most of the suburbs, I was at Kisii New Life because I was so comfortable there. So I could be here during weekdays and then weekends I go back to Kisii because that's where I was what? I was comfortable. So may God help us as we as we as we as we move along this journey of faith that may be strengthened. I don't know whether someone was an additional some question before we wind up.
Just to come to think about it. At the beginning, we saw that Paul is referring to Timothy as his son in faith. Many of us, we have lived as children of faith. I tend to think the reason why Paul is insisting that Timothy should continue staying in Ephesus, it's because he wants him to partake more task of nurturing, so that now he no longer is a child of faith. That he realizes that now he's a mature Christian. Majority of us, when we face challenges as we are serving God in His vineyard, because of our notion that we are still spiritual children, we tend to shy off and leave God's work pending. But it is a high time that we heed to the calling that we have here, that Paul is giving to Timothy, that we are not supposed to quit. We are supposed to understand now it's time to mature. And the only way we can mature is to face the challenges that we are facing and be able to handle them head on. I tend to think that's what I can maybe end
Any question? Addition? So I think we're going to at that. And I hope that the Lord will grant us more, continue speaking to us through the Holy Spirit, that what He desires of us as young people, as we desire to lift up Him, when we still have strength in our life. So let it be so deliberate that we continue reading the first chapter of First Timothy, so that the Lord continues speaking to us, so that we don't continue being spiritual children. At some point, so that when you also we need to be able to nurture others who are not known Christ, because as Katie say, as just said, sometimes we fear to nurture others because we still feel like we don't know enough, or we've not learned enough, and not learning enough, not because we lack resources to be able to learn, it's because we not made a deliberate effort and decision to be able to know His word well, so that the Lord can be able to enable us to teach others to know God better. So may that be our prayer, that we learn more. And this is a very interesting letter to me. Paul's letters are very interesting. So we learn more things as we move along. And I believe that the Lord will bless us. So till next Tuesday, let us invite our friends to be with us, either online or physically. And I know that the Lord, it's not been vain to all of us. Whatever experience we may gather, knowledge we may gather now, we may use it today, tomorrow, or years to come. And the Lord will be so. When we go to heaven, we'll be glad that we did not miss one Bible study when we were able to attend one. So may God bless us. So we'll raise up for a prayer from Enoch.
King of glory, we bow before your presence. Tonight we worship you and exalt your holy name. I want to thank you, Lord, these 5 daughters. You converged us here, Lord. We've had a discussion, getting to learn and getting to know more about you, O God. And now we want to pray that, Lord, in us, we instill all these experiences. Help us, O God, even as we walk out here. Lord, we put this to practice. Jesus Christ, we may always remember you're the personal Savior of our lives. That King of glory, out here we present you. Take charge of God even as we walk out of this place. We're calling upon you to go with us into our various destinations. Until such a time we meet again, honor and glory shall be yours. Lord, you want to also remember many others who so wish to be here with us, but due to one or two things, they were not able. That Jesus Christ, you may go with them at their point of needs. King of glory,